In 1948, Palestinians were subjected to what became known as the Nakba, the violent displacement of Palestinians and dispossession of their lands and belongings. Today, we're witnessing the second Nakba. That's according to opinion writer and author Fintan Drury. In his new book, Catastrophe, Nakba II, he takes us through the psyche and the history of Israeli attitudes towards the Palestinian people and the oppression of their society right up to the present day as their war with Hamas continues. And Fintan is with me now. Fintan Drury, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning.
Now, let's talk about the Nakba first. The first Nakba, 1948. The second Nakba, you believe, is happening right now, before our eyes.
In 1948, the first Nakba happened. And then I think a pivotal point was in 1967, at the end of the Six-Day War. And I quote in the book a statement made by Charles de Gaulle, the then French president, who warned that the failure to resolve this issue at that time, after the Six-Day War, which led to revised boundaries for the state of Israel and reduced boundaries for the state of Israel, which Israel since has refused to recognize. Therefore, we have the occupied territories. But de Gaulle warned at that time that the displacement of the Palestinian people would inevitably lead to them feeling oppressed, even more oppressed, and if the oppression continued, then there would be a reaction.
For the state of Israel is such a uniquely important cause that it is reasonable to brand those opposed to its unlawful expansion as such. They believe that Israel is a state with rights above the international norm. In other words, they believe they're special.
Well, they believe they're special, and clearly they have, ignored UN resolution after UN resolution. They are occupying. I mean, we are horrified. Most people are horrified by what we've witnessed in Gaza over the last 20 months. But I went to the West Bank last summer and witnessed what's been happening there firsthand. I witnessed that and could not believe the extent to which, as this war is going on in Gaza, and it's not really a war, but this conflict is going on in Gaza and being played out in front of us, behind that veil, the accretion of land, the theft of land by the state of Israel in the West Bank has accelerated beyond our worst imaginings. I saw wonderful, beautiful new roads built from Ramallah to Jerusalem, but you can only use them if you're a Jew.
If you're a settler. Or if you're coming to visit settlers.
Yeah, and I deliberately in the book use settler in parentheses. I mean, to me, they're thieves. Language is important here. About there's a question about war. We all use it naturally, in a sense, but it's not an accurate.
But the Israeli state has no right to these lands that it's taking.
Zip, none.
Now, you also contend it's very interesting that the Netanyahu government before was funneling money to Hamas.
Oh,
this is extraordinary. It wasn't something that I was aware of, and perhaps I should have been, that they were sending money to Hamas in Gaza to thwart the effectiveness of Fatah, who were running the West Bank, because they believed that the possibility of a separate Palestinian state would be located really on the West Bank, whatever about Gaza, and that they could not allow to happen. So they were supporting Hamas to undermine Fatah.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in cash through Qatar to Hamas, because they regarded Hamas as a safer bet than Fatah.
Going back to October the 7th, it need not have happened. I mean, this is not in any way to justify anything that was done on that day. The kidnapping of ordinary civilians, the killing of 1,200 people. I mean, if you look at proportionate killing, if you like, in Ireland, that would have meant the killing of about 800 people in proportion to the population. And how would we have reacted if a bunch of people from Northern Ireland rocked down and kidnapped people and killed people in that number? I mean, we would have been incensed. So you can understand how the Israelis were incensed by that. But it need not have happened. They took their eye off the ball, and there were some female lookouts that the IDF chose not to believe. Was that misogyny?
Well, I mean, they had warnings from Egypt, which are documented, and I document in the book. They had warnings from the United States, And they had very specific warnings from a group of intelligence officers, who happened to be all female unit. Not only did they tell them that there was an attack coming, they described the attack. They described the nature of the attack, including things like ladders being used to scale fences, including part of the attack being done by drones, and also people coming in to the state of Israel on paragliders. All of that was documented, and it is referenced in various places. There are various sources that stand it up, if you like, but they also point to the fact that the women officers, after the event, said they believe that one of the reasons the advice was ignored was because they were women. I mean, we also have to look at the political backdrop here. Netanyahu was a man under immense pressure internally within Israel. He's 75 years of age. I say that is not the reason why this is his last go as prime minister. He's facing, or was then facing, 3 criminal trials. He's still facing 2, one of which looks like it is really, really serious. There is a person in the Israeli political system, the current Attorney General, who is refusing to have that trial pushed back and is insisting that that trial would advance. It's a woman, and she is part of his administration, and he has tried to oust her, but oust her he cannot do so far. And ultimately, his political future is on the line here. So I'm not the first person to say this. It's been widely reported that there is a sense that the war, as it has been described, that this conflict is something that suits him politically. Now
that's been said on this program many times, that the idea of a permanent ceasefire doesn't suit him because that brings back political stability, and therefore the rule of law and all of those processes will continue. So as long as there's conflict, he is politically safe.
Correct.
And free from the attentions of the courts.
Yeah, and I think we can sort of say, well, look, nobody in political power is going to be that base in terms of their management of their own interests. I think this man is in a special place, has a special status.
Now, you have to, though, point the finger to the people in Hamas who contrived this attack. They know from their history of conflict in the Middle East how disproportionate Israeli responses normally are. So they must have known what they were bringing down on the people of Gaza. They must have known that it would be terrible, maybe not as terrible as it has turned out to be, but they must have known there would be a ferocious response. And were they hoping that the nature of that response would be such that the Iranians would get more actively involved, that neighbouring states would be so appalled that they couldn't stand idly by and watch the Palestinian people being crucified?
Well, I don't know, but my suspicion is that, and you're not wrong in profiling it in that manner and asking that question, but I think they would have more thought about what the West might do, and they may have thought that the United States would intervene and actually, if it got completely out of control, not initially, but completely out of control, as it has done. I think if you were to get the view of people within Hamas, they are probably astounded by the fact that Israel can inflict this level of damage and move on now from the bombardment to continuing some of the sort of military warfare, but in parallel with that, introduce a strategically managed and deliberately managed and staged conditions where famine is now going to kill the population. And so I think that the Iranian threat is overplayed, in my opinion. I reported for RTE back in the 80s from Libya and said then that I thought that the West didn't really appreciate and understand the Arab world, that there's a complexity there that we have never ever really understood, and we're not prepared to acknowledge that there's a culture which is very different to ours. It's as rich as ours, it's different, and it's not at all threatening. But the Israelis have used the Iranian threat really, really, really successfully. We are the last vestige. We are the bulwark against the threat of Iran in this part of the world, and therefore across the world if you include nuclear power.
Well, we've only skimmed the surface of the book. It's called Catastrophe, which it definitely is unfolding in Gaza. Subtitled Nakba II. It's written by Fintan Drury, and it is available everywhere now, published by Marion Press.